Thanks for joining the SAP Virtual HanaHaus Speaker Series today. My name is Daniel Zimmer. For those of you who know me, you've probably met me in this place here behind me in downtown Palo Alto. Of course, I'm not there right now for several reasons, but we're super excited that we're having our first virtual speaker series today with our great panel. With the topic Women in Leadership and Design today. What I'm particularly excited about is that we were able to pivot our in-person event to a virtual event. We changed the time a little bit, moved it to California time, lunchtime, and we opened it up to North America. And that is a new record for us because it's our first virtual event and it's our biggest event ever. More than 700 people signed up for the session today. And so we have people joining, coming in. So I'm super excited about this event, about the panel, about the questions that you may ask, and hopefully about many events that we will have in the future. For those of you who don't know the HanaHaus Speaker Series yet, we host monthly events focused on talking about innovation, thought leadership, and any kind of ventures that are happening out there in the world in the technology or science universe. And then we bring in thought leaders and have them talk about it, usually moderated by SAP. SAP is also our sponsor for the session. As you may know, HanaHaus, our co-working cafes that we have in Newport and in Palo Alto, are owned by SAP and based on the vision of SAP's founder. And so SAP decided that they want to sponsor these events, and that's why we're doing them on a monthly basis because they became so successful. So before I hand it over to Kasia, who is our moderator today and our wonderful panel, I do want to draw your attention a little bit to the background images that you see today because those are actual pictures from HanaHaus in Palo Alto and Newport Beach. So even though you may be in your living room or your office, at least you can experience a little bit the HanaHaus atmosphere, which will be ready for you once we're back, and the current COVID crisis is over. So without further ado, handing it over to Kasia and hope we have a great event today. If you have any questions or any suggestions, if you have any speaker suggestions for future events, please reach out to me. My email address or our shared inbox for HanaHaus is hanahaus@sap.com. We're open for any suggestions, any feedback as we are continuing to improve these sessions. Without further ado, Kasia, please take it from here.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And I'm coming to you live from the HanaHaus in Newport Beach and really looking forward to getting back there once this is all over. So we had initially had the plan to have this session during International Women's Day in March, but we have a changing environment and changing circumstances, so we are now virtual, but very, very happy to be here. So by way of introduction, my name is Kasia Pfeffer, and I am lucky enough to be in communications at SAP within the New Ventures and Technologies group. We focus on innovation. So I do that, but I also moonlight as a moderator for these HanaHaus speaker series. Lucky to do that as well. So for today's discussion, we're going to open up with some introductions from our panelists, then transition into a 30-minute moderated panel. And then from there, we're going to open it up to audience questions. So if you do have any questions, feel free to enter those in the chat at any time and I'll get to them. I noticed we already have some questions in the chat and some of them are actually questions that I'm going to ask. So really excited to see y'all engaging already. So thank you all for listening in. And we will go ahead and get started with our introductory question, which is going to go to all of our panelists. And that question is, in a few sentences, please tell us what your favorite quarantine snack is and just a little bit about yourself. So we'll go ahead and open it up with Pamela.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pamela Bailey. I'm going to start with the very important question about my favorite quarantine snack. So I have to admit that my snacks have changed since working at home. I used to have a ton of variety and maybe some unhealthy options, but now my favorite quarantine snack is a slice of Swiss cheese. It just a little bit of protein, feels healthy. But, you know, a little bit about me. So I've been leading and supporting design teams for over 15 years. I'm currently at Facebook within the ads and business platform. Before that, at Capital One, where we were reimagining small business lending. And before that, I spent some years with Intuit and QuickBooks. And there's two common threads in this journey that I wanted to share. The first one is really around fueling and helping support and facilitate small businesses, the passion that they display every day, and their ability to help and really fuel the world's global economy. And then secondly, I absolutely adore omni-channel experiences, designing across multiple touch points, and very much in spaces that are considered sometimes a little bit unsexy, but really they have really gnarly business and problems and really interesting things to solve. So thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you, Pamela. And I'll kick it over to Cheriana. Take it away.
Hey everyone, I'm Cheriana Griggs, coming to you from my living room. I was supposed to be at the HanaHaus Palo Alto, I think, but here we are. So I am currently a senior interaction designer at Google, and I've been there for a little over 2 years now. I work on search, so I'm designing on a daily basis, but I also manage a team of designers. And we're really in the business of sense making. How do you make sense of all of the world's information? And that's a really hard job. It's really complicated. Search has been around for over 20 years. I think one of the first questions that I got when I came to Google from people is, well, what do you actually design on search? Like, search has like been the same forever, right? The question or the answer is that there's actually a lot to design. And, you know, we have different experiences for mobile and desktop. There's the Google search apps. So it's very complicated, but it's a lot of fun. And I get to work with really amazing teammates. So prior to Google, I was working at GoDaddy, actually with Kelsey Pfeffer. And I worked on the website builder product there. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here. And of course, the most important answer, my quarantine snack is Trader Joe's truffle Marcona almonds. They're so good. And they're roasted, so they're not really as good for you, but you know, better than potato chips, right?
Totally agree. Thank you, Cheriana. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Kasia. Go ahead and take it away. Maybe unmute yourself, sorry. Thank you.
My God, how many times that happens during the during the meetings. I guess we just replicated the day-to-day experience. Apologies to everybody. I was just telling you how excited I am to be here with all of you, with Kelsey and Cheriana and Pamela. My name is Kasia, and as you already know, designers at SAP UX Group. Application developers to build better experiences with SAP Design System, which is called Fiori. A little bit about me. I am extremely passionate about truly everything design and do have fine arts background. I love making things and spending time surrounded by nature, which I can't really do right now unless we consider, the park next to my house, being a great substitute for it. My favorite snack for quarantine, it happened to be dates because I just had a bunch of dates in the cupboard when the quarantine started, and then I was hooked. So that's one. But then it's also dark chocolate because it's always dark chocolate. So that's me.
I completely agree with that. So to kind of kick off the panel today, I think we would be remiss to not mention kind of the climate of things that are going on around all of us. So, given the current situation with COVID-19, it feels like everything has changed, including our personal lives, how we connect with our team, how we connect with our customers. So can each of you kind of share how you're adapting to this new normal?
Yeah, I'll go first. So gotta admit, working from home has been nice in a lot of ways. I'm used to like a really long commute down to Mountain View. So the working from home was really, really nice, cutting that out. But I've had to really change just making sure that I'm still getting up at an early hour, so that when we do transition back into our regular way of working, that, you know, that there's still some normalcy here. So I'm still getting up early. I make sure I get in a run or yoga or meditation, some me time. And then, you know, professionally throughout the day, my team and I try and make sure that we always have time blocked off on the calendar throughout the day, so that we just get up and stretch, right? Because I think working from home, you know, you don't have as many distractions, and you know, you have all the comforts, but you can find yourself just, you know, on your butt for a really long time, maybe even working longer hours than you do normally. So making sure that we have that time blocked off on the calendar, and that we all respect that time and try not to schedule over it, is really important. And then I think Google has a really a big responsibility to make sure that information about coronavirus is available. And so there's a lot of efforts that have been happening on search and assistant to make sure that the word gets out there, and that you can get the answers that you are seeking.
Amazing, thank you. Pamela or Kasia, anything to add there?
Yes, absolutely. I was just, you know, nodding when I heard Cheriana talking about getting up early in the morning and maintaining that routine, because that's something that I very much also try to do, despite the fact that that 1 hour, hour and a half actually bus commute is no longer part of my day. So what I've been doing is starting a day with sunrise walks, actually, with my young puppy, which I'm still teaching her to behave on the leash. So that's an amazing way of starting a day, and I think it gives me a lot of energy. But you know, what I wanted to reflect on is that despite the fact that, you know, I personally actually had experience of working remotely, because as it happened, when I joined my team at SAP, I was a truly remote contributor the entire year, right? You know, and I'm actually introvert. The problem, at least to start, right, before kind of jumping in, you know, and solving it jointly with the team. I want to say that this context is just very different, right? This simply working remotely. I think there's so much happening right now. Is being, you know, extremely close to my family, friends, and my team, you know, to understand when everybody is, you know, and build the kind of working environment that is way more flexible maybe than our day-to-day previously, you know, look like, because people, you know, our colleagues turn into, you know, well, homeschoolers, or some of them, you know, are dealing with the newborns and young kids at home, etc. And I think that this integration, work and life balance, you know, looks very different for all of us right now. So, you know, like Cheriana, you know, we also, you know, create opportunities to connect with the team, and I meet pretty much daily, you know, either for a virtual lunch or, you know, so-called water cooler meeting, where we chat about everything, you know, but work, because we have obviously, you know, already tons of project-related meetings on our calendar. We just want to make sure that we keep connecting as people. And, you know, one discovery actually in the situation is that we sometimes connect at the deeper level. I feel like we're learning things about each other that we have not, you know, learned otherwise. And really great ideas regarding, you know, various remote rituals, you know, are coming out from that as well, which we currently are experimenting with.
Really great perspective. Pamela, anything to add there?
Yeah, so I'll round out with just two thoughts. So just want to emphasize something that's really important that, you know, we're thinking of as a team that I think Cheriana also mentioned, is that, you know, at Facebook, we have a huge responsibility in terms of thinking about the ways that we connect the world and help to disseminate information. And so as we think about physically distancing, how do we still ensure that we're facilitating information in proper information, factual information, as well as just ensuring that we're able to connect with our friends and families and our extended relationships and maintain that human-to-human contact, which is so important. And I think that we're really starting to feel it now that we're kind of within California. We're about a month in, how lonely it can start to feel when you are physically distancing. From a team perspective, we're really trying to aim on delivering the same kind of experience that we would have in the office, but doing it virtually. So if we think about how we would pop by each other's desks to say good morning, we now actually have a chat thread where every morning we say good morning to each other, share little funny anecdotes about what's going on. People have some really new experiences with working from home, now homeschooling. And so there's a lot of life that's really infusing into our work. And I think that I just want to emphasize the point that we're getting to know each other better. Yes, and we have to be much more vulnerable and willing to admit when we're having a bad day and giving each other the space to do so. And so I think that just doubling down on the importance of both asynchronous communication as well as the opportunity to do these kind of sessions that are virtual.
Yeah, really great points. Thank you all. So the meat of this panel is really talking about women in leadership and then also design. And, you know, based on some of the questions that I'm seeing coming in and conversations I've had with my team before, there's a strong interest in, you know, the women in leadership aspect of this panel. So I'm going to kind of kick it off with some questions around that. So, you know, you all are incredibly talented women in leadership roles, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners have similar ambitions. So as you look back at your journey, what's one piece of advice you would have given your younger self? And anyone can start.
Okay, can I go first?
Go for it.
Okay. So, you know, I think that that's a tricky question actually, but the most important thing that I wish I've learned and understood earlier is to truly, you know, embrace my authentic self. I think the image that I had, you know, of what aligns who I am, you know, it was this unachievable mold of, you know, very self-confident, kind of quick thinker who always provide answers, has super sharp point of views, and jump on the stage or in a panel like that, you know, with no hesitation. And that's simply not me. You know, so I thought that this was, you know, whom I would need to become successful, right? And I've learned that actually there's probably more value in me playing to my strengths rather than focusing on the gaps that I need to fill and tackle those weaknesses, right? Because obviously we are not the same, and there is a humongous value in diversities of styles, thinking styles even, right? And personalities. So for me, you know, this was, I think, the biggest.
I think Kasia froze.
Yeah, it might be cutting out a little bit, Kasia, but great points for sure. And thank you for your insight. Are you back? This is so authentic. I love it. Real life technical problems totally happens to everybody. Awesome. Pamela or Cheriana, anything to add on to that?
I would just love to build on that point. So the one thing that I was going to emphasize is really about, I really wish I deeply understood my strengths and like really own them. Because I think in so many cases, you know, appearing authentically also means that you know what you're really good at and you're willing to admit where you aren't as strong. And I think why that's important is because then you can help create experiences with other people who can help be puzzle pieces that fit into you. And so I really wish and reflect on the fact that I could have known and owned my associated strengths and then spent a little bit more time understanding the shadows that sometimes come with those strengths, so that I could, you know, develop a more rounded self faster, while at the same time, I mean, if you don't have the experience of going through the journey and learning on your own, like, I don't know, I still like the experiential knowledge that you gain by actually going through that experience.
Yeah, I mean, I would just +1 to what both of you said. finding what energizes you and focusing on that instead of, what your weaknesses are. That's something that, I'm constantly working on, and I wish I had focused on more when I was my younger self. But I would also say, dear younger self, you've worked really hard and you know what you're talking about, and you shouldn't be afraid to speak up and challenge people, no matter what their position or rank in the company may be. I think when I was younger, there's one situation I remember in particular, but this happened quite a bit. I was talking with the CEO and the CTO of the company I was working for, and I was still new at the time. And I was talking with the CTO about, the technical feasibility of creating this design that I had done. And I knew the answer, and I knew at that time I was doing front end development too. So I was like, I know that this is possible. And the CTO challenged me, and he was an older man who had been at the company for a very long time. And so immediately I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm stupid. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. And like the CTO just challenged, like, that this is even possible. And so I stepped back and I left that conversation with my tail between my legs, and I got back to my desk and I, did a little research and looked up, and yes, actually I was right. And I did have the answer, right? I just didn't trust in myself that, I could be right at these things. And just because someone else has, worked on the product for longer or older, whatever position they may be in, doesn't mean that they're automatically right. And so I think just trusting in yourself that, you can have the answers, and you should have the confidence to challenge. And if I could go back, I would have asked questions, right? I would have said, well, have you used this? Or how would you go about doing this, right? And make it into a conversation with him instead of just automatically thinking that I was wrong.
Yeah, that's a great point of feedback. Just, challenging folks to ask the questions, because although I'm not a leader in design by any means, I definitely run into those problems, and that's a great, way to address it, rather than just saying I'm probably wrong and walking out of the room. How do you turn it into a conversation and ask the questions? And I think that's really fair. Kind of building on that, what are some of the key characteristics and actions that you found to be really valuable in getting you to where you are today?
I'm happy to start it off. I think there's two characteristics that have been very helpful on my journey. The first one is around a mindset of experimentation. I love trying things out. I love kind of setting a goal, deeply understanding a problem, and then trying to figure them out. Whether it's like years ago when I was a hands-on designer, or now as I start to think about organizational health or setting visions and helping teams set visions, I really think that embracing the sense of experimentation has been very helpful. With experimentation comes a degree of willingness to fail and to look dumb and to say, oh, I didn't know, or oh, that was really a mess up. And so I like to frame it all around the idea of learning and also recognizing when things haven't gone well, because that's part of the experimentational journey. So that's the first one. I think the other characteristic, and this is one that I think is so critical for both people as well as leaders, and that's really around the importance of empathy and being empathetic with the people that you work with, trying to understand their point of view, being very empathetic with your customers and the people that you're creating experiences for, as well as being empathetic with yourself. And I think it's that last part, that last being empathetic with yourself, that's actually one of the hardest things to do. And it's one that I'm absolutely working on, but I think that the idea of empathy and the role it plays is one that I think is really critical.
Yeah, these are great, Pamela. Thanks for sharing. Can you guys hear me well, by the way? Because my connection, okay, but the problem is still here. Okay. So when I think about what truly helped me, right, to get where I am, I think there's, on the one hand side, the just being open-minded and flexible, because I want to admit, to all of you that I wasn't necessarily extremely intentional about my career. It's not precisely that I could imagine, years back where I wanted to be. And most definitely when I was, art student, mixing all, chemicals in a dark room, because my focus was photography, I definitely did not imagine myself, being at the enterprise, software company. And yet here I am, and enjoy every minute of this experience. And so it was, by flexibility here, I mean, just taking the opportunities that life, brings. So that's one. The other, I think the most important in my case would be actually having the collaborative spirit. Because, despite the fact that I thought, I've got to design precisely because I'm introvert and want to work alone, I actually learned that I really thrive working with people. I think it's collaborating not with designers, but also, product managers and developers, right? That truly empower, me to become a lead designer and later, right now, a design manager as well.
I love Pamela, Kasia. Both of your responses are so spot on. I think in addition to those, yes, the relationship building, right? Like learning how to work effectively, communicate effectively with your cross-functional partners is so imperative to being successful as a designer. Another one is storytelling, and this is something that I'm still working on and getting better at, hopefully. I think especially, when you start forming visions for a product and trying to show not where a product is today, but where it could be. Being able to show the beginning, middle, and end and have this cohesive story that brings people in and makes them feel something and makes them get excited, right? Like, I think that's a really key tool in order to just get people on the same side and get them motivated and get everyone on the same page for working towards whatever it is you're working towards. So relationship building, storytelling definitely are two things that I'm still working on, but have been really effective in the past.
It's really cool to see kind of how aligned you all are with your experience and your advice. And I think that's really cool because, you've all ended up in such great places. So it's great to hear you kind of echo each other's thoughts on some of these things. And I definitely want to get into a couple of design questions for you all. But before I get to that, I wanted to just kind of ask, what do you believe is the biggest challenge facing female leaders today?
I'll start. I think it's being able to see ourselves as leaders and see ourselves in those positions, whether it's VP or just a manager, right? Like, I feel very, very fortunate that I'm in an organization right now where we have amazing, strong female leads. My manager is amazing. We have really strong product manager female leads, and we have a couple of VPs throughout Google too. But if you look at most companies, and even at Google, right, depending on the org that you're in, there's just not as many female leaders, and so to feel confident that you can do that job, being able to see those other female leads is really important. And so I think we're getting there, but we're still not there yet. And kind of a part of that too is just having the allies that help support these strong women leaders, because we can't do it alone.
I want to yes and on that comment. I love the notion. It's like, yes, to imagine ourselves as, the VP, as CEO, like looking to that example, I think is so important. one of the things I also see, and something that I struggle with personally, that can be maybe something that is an opportunity for many women or female leaders to develop, is really owning our impact story, and the ability to both comprehensively articulate how we as individuals and as leaders have added value both to the team and to the product and to the experience, and then to also just be willing to champion it with the people that you work with, but also take the stories of your colleagues and be an ally for them and ensure that we are telling their story as well, and just creating much more of a community and a supportive network in order to help all boats rise.
Agree. I mean, both of you shared obviously amazing points. And to some degree, those challenges that come from within us, right? So us being our own, let's say, obstacle towards progressing farther. What I'm going to say is actually something, that we obviously don't like to hear, but it's still unfortunately a reality. And that means, still being excluded, in certain situations. So it really wasn't actually all that long time ago. I think it was about 2.5 years ago. I was attending a company event, which is geared towards the most technical audience, but I was actually validating the designs for our product. And at the same time, 10 other colleagues from my product team attended that event. So it was 11 of us. I was the only woman there, right? Despite the fact that this is not a number of percentage of women actually that we had within our team. For our research participants that signed up, I think we were around 15 or 16 people, and only one person was woman. That just tells me that there still aren't enough women, working in tech, still aren't enough women attending this event and being able to make the impact.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure if it cut out again, but oh, perfect. I don't think it did. But that's just awesome. And, hearing you all talk, I'm just thinking, man, like, if we can inspire so many women on this call to, be leaders and take some of this advice, I mean, I think we're really going to be in a good place. So excited for that. We have a couple more minutes until we open it up for audience questions. And I'm sure there's a lot of designers on the phone who have questions for you all. So I'm excited to get to those. But I wanted to open it up with, what is the importance of UI and UX design, and what different qualities should they bring to a website or a page or whatever you're working on designing?
Who wants to go first? I just volunteered myself. Cool.
Go for it.
Love it.
Okay, so I guess in a nutshell, user experience, the UX is really about seeing the whole picture, right? As a designer, you could be working on a tiny component, right? Or a little piece of a much bigger product, right? And a good designer is able to see that entire product, not just the product for itself, but like how a user experiences it. So when they first hear about your brand, right, whether it's on Instagram and they see an ad or wherever it may be, right, and then like the feeling that they get from your brand, from using your product, or from an email that is sent, right? So it's just the connection of all these different things that a user can experience, and I think there's some really awesome things that you can do with brand expression, making sure that you're paying attention not only to the visual design in the UI, but then also the motion design, right? How long does it, and then things like how long does it take for your app to load, right? All of these little things combined make up the UX, and people form their opinion about your brand based on all of this stuff. So just being aware of all of those things. We're trying to. It's really difficult.
The connection was cutting out a little bit, and I'm not sure whether Cheriana covered this. Probably yes, but maybe just to emphasize and repeat that point, I mean, user experience and design of the interface actually jointly impact the experience that users have with the product, and in extension, a mother brand, whomever actually created this product. So they're really key to create, lasting relationship with customers, and at the end of the day, affect the bottom line.
One of the things I'll add here is really, it's not necessarily about UX or UI, just so much the role of the designer in the process, and whether you're a UX designer, a UI designer, a product designer, a visual designer. At the end of the day, I like to talk to the team about, in many cases, we're curators. We are really guides to the experience. We make very purposeful choices about what to include and what to exclude. And so I like to think about the product designer as being a curator, and that just to remind people that every UI element is a choice. And one question to always ask yourself is, does it really need to be there? Because the burden on our end users is very high in order to understand controls and make decisions. And so the more that we can actually streamline it and think about the holistic picture through that one UI element, I think is really key.
Amazing. You have such a good way of telling a story, Pamela. I love hearing the way you answer these questions. One more question from me, and then I'll switch over to the audience questions. But what are some interesting design trends that you've seen over the past year that kind of caught your eye and you want to share?
Okay.
No interesting
I'll
design
go
trends?
first. I'll go first again. So I love the kind of simplicity, like back to basics, minimalism design that I'm seeing a lot of. I can't tell you how many apps and just different sites that I've come across, and even like mailers, right? Just branding of different companies where they're just playing around with like circles and squares and like, just black and white, nothing crazy, right? But it's so beautiful, so beautiful. That, and then I'm seeing a lot of like organic shapes too. And some really cool patterns that are being created out of that. So that's kind of like one thing. And then another pattern or thing that I'm seeing that I love is this personalization, right? So it's no longer just you log into an app and like there's your avatar and like, okay, that's my account, right? It seems like there's a lot of companies now that are hyper personalized. So two examples. Care of has beautiful design, and you take like a quiz and you say what you're looking for, and then they personalize vitamin packs and they print them with your name on it, and so it feels special every single day. You're like, oh, Cheriana's vitamin pack, right? But every month they switch up their packaging too, so it's a different design with a different theme every month. Another company that's doing a lot of personalization, my dog food. I have a dog, her name is Chloe, and I feed her the farmer's dog, and they're kind of along the same model where you go and you fill out a little survey about how much your dog weighs and are they a picky eater, all of these different things. And then every month or every 2 weeks, they send you personalized food packages for your dog with your dog's name on it and like how much you should feed them. And so it just feels a lot more special, right? It's more customized to you, and it's not just for anyone or for any dog, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, those are the two trends that I'm seeing.
Thanks for sharing, Cheriana. Now I'm intrigued about that dog food service, given, my pup. I'll reach out to you after that panel so I can check them out.
Yeah, I'll give you my discount code.
Great. Thank you. What I think is extremely important, and I'm so glad to see design, right? So how do we go beyond simply, accessibility of our products, but make sure that actually everybody is included, feels welcome. And the aspect of it that particularly interests me, which by the way, I don't know, much about yet, but hopefully we'll be diving deeper, in this coming year, is actually how do we design, in a way that our products are relevant for different cultures? So how can we, make the tone of voice in the product, adapt to the cultural context, as well as, have illustrations or iconography, perhaps, used on the product, respond to where the product is being used. And that's particularly interesting challenge, I believe, at enterprise, given, the global audience for the products that we are building.
And I'll round us out with sharing. So first of all, I love all those trends that were highlighted between the personalization, the emotive design that you mentioned, and then thinking differently about our end users and trying to think at scale in terms of how do we meet people where they are. And so I tend to think about design trends often as being about novel approaches, leveraging new technologies in order to solve problems. And the other thing that I always have a tendency to think about when it comes to the notion of trend is opportunity space. And one of the things that I continue to see us as designers have opportunity space is really in truly designing end-to-end experiences that start from the back end and manifest on the front end and into intangible touch points. And so truly omni-channel experiences where we are taking into account from the first moment an end user will engage with our product all the way through their life cycle. And as well as then thinking about how do we actually help design and shape back-end systems and policies in order to ensure that we are actually infusing both the brand and the love of our customers, as well as things that they need to be educated about throughout the experience, and really thinking about it as a complete system. And so if we start to think about machine learning, then that's a trend that could help fulfill that system. If we think about AI or voice and other types of platforms, that at the end of the day, it's all just trying to ultimately drive home a really meaningful and valuable product for that customer.
Can I add something more, given that Pamela's remarks just triggered some thoughts as well? Because what I think is extremely interesting is with the rise of all new technologies, which brings obviously new opportunities and challenges, for all of us designers. We can truly, work towards creating more immersive user experience, right? Like, what if we actually, could utilize, technologies like eye tracking and brain computing, right, to enhance how we interact with the existing, systems, or introduce, the natural interfaces, so just to enhance that existing experience. I think those are really interesting, problems that hopefully all of us will be exploring, and solving in the near future.
Wonderful, thank you. So just to kind of level set, we've got about 15 minutes left of the panel, and we have about 40 questions. So thank you so much to the nearly 350 of you who've tuned in and who've been engaging and asking questions. We super appreciate it. And I'm gonna go ahead and optimize for some of these questions that have the thumbs up. So just if you see a question on the list that you would like to see answered during this session, feel free to hit that thumbs up, and that'll kind of trigger to me which ones want to come first. But I will start with one that had 45 thumbs up, and that's just when you all think about new job growth, where do you think that's going to be kind of focused moving forward? And I think this is kind of in relation to the COVID-19 crisis.
Well, I'll share some thoughts, but I don't know if this is specifically, I actually want to ask a question to clarify the question. And so I'm going to take it from the first angle around new job growth related to product design or for designers. Like, what are some of the next kind of big areas of investment for designers. And I think that there's two areas that I would highlight, and that is really around ongoing design opportunities related to privacy and data literacy, and becoming really, really engaged in helping end users understand their data trail and the privacy that's associated with that. And then the second area I would highlight as a kind of an up and coming area of job growth for designers is in policy design, is really helping to marry the legality that happens with GDPR and all of the legal system that protects end users with the trying to make it human, and trying to kind of extrapolate the fine points of understanding, and really kind of ensuring that designers can do what they do best, which is map that need to the opportunity, but do it in such a way that we're working really tightly with policy creators.
Great answer, Pamela. Maybe I'll add on to a little bit, because kind of looping back to what we were talking about before, right? So opportunities, with the omni channels, or like enhancing, experiences with the new technologies. With the rise of 3D interfaces in augmented reality, or mixed reality, virtual reality, that definitely will be a lot of requirements for the right skill set to actually prototype those experiences. And we probably will be looking obviously beyond just visual interfaces. We're talking about the sound design, how it can actually enhance the experience within those contexts as well. So that's one thing that just came to mind. And the other thing I think is also democratizing design in a way that citizen developers or designers of the world, right, can create their own solutions. And I think we already made a humongous step towards that with design systems that really enable people build applications faster and have this better, I wouldn't say great, because it all depends of how those building blocks are being applied, but better experience, let's say, out of the box. I wonder what toolset will be built in the near future, right, to enable people actually design without designers.
Cheriana, anything to add there? Should we move to the next question?
I think Pamela and Kasia did a great job answering, and I just +1 to what both of they said.
Amazing. So this next question is actually kind of similar. I think it builds upon what you all were just sharing. So what is the best way to transition your career into a different area? This person wrote that it feels like a chicken and egg situation where you need a different skill than what your current position offers. So what are your recommendations there?
I'll jump in. So I think about, I love the idea of transitioning careers. So I have to admit, I did it very early on. And so based on my experience and how I've seen other people do it well, it's really about ensuring that you understand the outcomes for that next career. And so if you think about, let's say you want to move in to become a designer, then really trying to understand what are the outcomes, the hard skills and the soft skills that a designer needs, and then using means by which to have a proof point around them. You don't necessarily have to have the job and the title in order to illustrate your existing skill set and to recognize where you are. And so I think about the opportunity to, if you were to transition to become a designer, the opportunity to work with a not-for-profit in turn and really help them with a product expression or a website or something that illustrates how your skill is developing and how you are lending impact in that area. And so I think that, as a hiring manager, I'm often looking for people who have are great communicators, very proactive, and have a ton of initiative, and can really help illustrate how they are developing skills and self-reflection in terms of where they are at that skill level.
Yeah, adding on to that, I think there's a lot of these boot camps out there that, especially for UX design, that promise people that if they do it and they go through this boot camp and then they're going to come out and they're going to get a great job, and UX is sexy and it's awesome and it is fun, right? It is. You should love what you do, right? But I think that there's a lot of things that you can do while still in your current position. As Pamela was mentioning, maybe you can go out and do a side project, right? If you did I freeze? I froze. No? Okay. Yeah, so, finding a nonprofit or a family or friend that might have a small business that you can just, maybe try updating their website or, work on some new marketing stuff for them, find some other avenues. There's plenty of meetups out there that you can go, and they're always doing workshops on things to just brush up and learn a new skill set. So yeah, I think my big point here is just make sure that you're actually really interested in that new position and what you'll be doing on a daily basis, and try and speak to as many people as possible, reach out to people, grab coffee with them, because UX design is hard. It is hard, especially as we move into maybe these opportunity spaces that were just discussed with more policy design and things that maybe aren't as sexy and more about the architecture and creating these different ways of humanizing things or thinking about things differently. So yeah, as many kind of side projects as you can do, and don't necessarily rely on boot camps because they don't always work.
Well, you've both covered this wonderfully. All I say is that I like this approach, of learn a little and do a little. So don't be afraid and just go out and experiment. Don't shoot, for perfection. And again, kind of going back to you being your own obstacle before moving back. I mean, there isn't a moment, that you need to have your skill at this level, when you can move forward, because the truth is we actually do hire for potential and for the attitude as well. So, if you're curious and interested and invested, it doesn't matter if you master this particular skill right now, we believe you will in the future. So.
Man, I love those points, and I'm definitely learning a lot from this panel in terms of, getting out there, networking, what managers are looking for and hiring for potential, and just encouraging the listeners to get kind of a side hustle. I'm a big fan of a side hustle, so really, really great stuff. This is kind of a tough question, so I'm really interested in how y'all will take it, especially given that we're ending nearing the end of the panel, so you're all warmed up for sure. And the question is, do you ladies still experience imposter syndrome, and how do you deal with that internal struggle?
Yes, absolutely, every single day.
Yes, Cheriana, with the honesty.
Yeah.
Please build on that.
So I've actually spoken on a couple of panels about imposter syndrome, and that was like years ago, right? But everyone experiences it. It's an ongoing thing. And it doesn't matter what your gender is, what your age is, what position you're at. A VP at one of my previous companies he was like, you know what? It actually gets worse as you go up in the ranks, because now, I'm with, this big shot and this big shot. And I'm like, oh, I'm a big shot, right? So, yes, imposter syndrome is real. How do you deal with it? Just admitting that you don't know all the answers, but you are uniquely you. Put in, the time and the effort on your work, and make sure that you love what you're doing, right? Like, work should be fun, right? It should be what energizes you. And so if you're just focusing on the user and your design and making sure that, like, what you're doing you actually love, everything else kind of just falls into place, and you get over the imposter syndrome, or it's at least in the back of your head, back there.
I would double down. Imposter syndrome, it's real. I think if somebody doesn't have it, then that's the bigger question, because it's certainly something that is part of my life, absolutely. And I think about it as being an opportunity when that happens to actually reflect. Why is this happening? What is this context of this situation that's making me feel small, unintelligent, unimportant? Like, what's going on here? Is it a matter of it's a new experience? Is it a new problem space? Is it that I feel like I don't have 110% of the information by which to actually add value? Is it a matter of, hey, you know what? It's that person again, and maybe I don't really have a trusting relationship with that person, and so I don't know if they're that if I maybe need to work on that relationship. And so I think that there's something that's actually really important about acknowledging imposter syndrome and taking it and using it as a reflection tool. Using it as a means of saying, oh, in that moment, I felt like an idiot, or I didn't feel like I belong there. And why was that? And then how can I then take that and learn from it, and not feel small, but use it as an opportunity to self-assess, to embrace it, to laugh it off and to work through.
Wonderful answers. I was laughing because it's my reality every single day, and some days it's more quiet, some days it's here louder, and it even paralyzes me at times. So depending, how I take it, actually either motivates me to go farther because I go deeper and learn, or it actually, make me stop in my tracks. So, the only thing I say, again, embrace it. It is the reality. Learn to live with it and turn it into the opportunity.
Really great stuff. So I want to make sure we respect everyone's time, and we're kind of nearing the end here, but I want to just say, this was so valuable for me. So Pamela, Cheriana, Kasia, thank you so much for your time and your insight. Like I said, we've got, over 40 questions, so I'm sure you may get some follow-up after this. Lots of questions related to design and then also leadership. So thank you so much for sharing your insight. And thank you so much to every listener who took time out of their day to join this call. We really appreciate you joining our HanaHaus speaker series, and kind of allowing us to test this new virtual format, and working through the kinks. And I hope that everybody will be able to join us in person for a HanaHaus speaker series event sometime in the future, hopefully in person. So thank you everybody for joining, and have a great whatever day it is, which it's Tuesday, in case you needed to know. Thanks, everyone.
Being a great one moderator.
Oh, thanks. You made it easy. So
thanks, everyone.
Thank you.